Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boomer Bust channel, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and today got a lot to talk about. I'm coming fresh off the Caleb Williams versus Notre Dame 23 tape that everybody is so scared about. So let's start off with talking about the new offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, coming from Seattle. So the number one thing I want to get off my chest first is I'm so tired of people saying that he fixed Geno Smith. And if you are a better Bears fan, you've been listening for a while, you probably already knew that. It is so annoying. It is so annoying. Now, obviously, you're going to get that in the media, sports media. But again, as I said, I've been listening to that radio more recently, and funny thing, did not know they stream live on YouTube. So if you also are not in the Chicago area anymore and you can't pick up the radio, or you don't want to use an app to listen to the channels, ESPN 1000 live stream, and I'm sure the other channels do too. So I've obviously know what Tom Waddle looks like. I've never seen Carmen and Yoko to today. Literally nothing what I thought they looked like. And Sylvie doesn't really look like what I thought he looked like. But anyway, so they got a live stream. So listening to the radio, I think more so than anything disappoints me, because that's as close to like a true Chicago Bears fan. Like, of course, we got the casuals and we got the Twitter warriors, but the local radio, obviously, they talk to the beat writers. They stay plugged into this stuff. And so to hear them saying the same stuff is annoying. So that gets tossed away like just a matter of fact. Oh, yeah, he fixed Geno. He was there when Geno got fixed. Now, last time I checked, we don't have, I don't know how old he was, but I know he was more than 7 years. Let's just say we don't have a 10-year vet who never lived up to expectations, and we might want to give it one more try to see if we could get something out of him. I'm pretty sure that's not our case, so I don't understand why that keeps getting discussed. But also, it's not true. Like, first of all, Geno was there a year before he got there, and he was a year when he was there before he ever started. So you can't say Seattle magically made Geno better. You can't say Shane Waldron magically made Geno better. What happened is Russ left and Geno had the opportunity to win the job, and he did. And then he played well within that system using his actual talent and all those years of learning. I mean, it's the same discussion. Well, why did Joe Flacco come off the couch and know how to play? Because, again, physical trait is what the physical trait is, especially at quarterback. Man has a huge arm still. And then when you have a defense giving you turnovers, giving you short fields, and really also he ain't had nothing to lose for, you can let it rip. And you can make plays because you've done seen so much over the time. And so you have Geno, who has been in this system for years, and then he finally gets his shot. You got all this talent around him. Like, I just don't get it. I do not understand what these people, what they think and what they've been taught. Like, the CJ Stroud conversation, it's 1,000 of these conversations that we can pick and choose from. The CJ Stroud well, you guys heard it today. You clearly didn't know he was the better quarterback. How is he the better quarterback? First of all, Houston would have took Bryce Young too. So let's just stop that. So we're going to give points to Houston for what? Not being the number one pick? Because if we're going to sit here and say everybody messed up because they didn't take CJ Stroud, well, then Houston also messed up too because they weren't going to take him anyway. So we got to stop with this silly notion that, oh, well, Stroud is Stroud. and you put him on the Bears, and he's just gonna be Stroud. That's not how it is. It ain't Stroud is the better quarterback, or Stroud was clearly the better quarterback. It's Stroud went to the better situation, and he went to the one that worked for him. That is what it is. So, Baker, another great example. Oh man, I can't believe Baker. This is more now. Yes, them going to the second round of playoffs might be more than people expected, but to have a former number one overall pick go to a team with 2 top 20 receivers and still one of the top 5 tackles in the league, even though the rest of the offensive line was took some time to get healthy, and that defense underachieved massively, but still mostly a Super Bowl caliber defense, or players, I should say. Yeah, I mean, he did well. Like, what are you talking about? Geno Smith had DJ Metcalf and TJ Lockett. And then they had 2 rookie tackles that were amazing. Then you got Kenneth Walker. Like, yeah, he did well. And I'm not saying Geno didn't fix his own thing, but it is a team sport. And I feel like I have to keep saying that because the rhetoric is just so individual. It's such a vacuum conversation. When we're talking about Geno resurrected his career, and Geno is just this great quarterback. When we talk about DK Metcalf, then it's like, oh, DK is such a good receiver, he elevated Geno. When we talk about Shane Waldron, oh, Shane Waldron was such a great coordinator because he fixed Geno. No, these all come together. So the story's not the same. And that's why I don't care what you say. 99% of the time, it's not apples to apples. You take this player, pick him up, put him on this team, and it's the same season. There's no way to replicate the same team. You can't do it year to year, and you definitely can't do it across the league. So it does not matter what you do. You will only be on that team in that moment for that moment. It's not going to be replicated again. And so to think that you could just have the exact same season being picked up and put into a random situation is crazy. So to sit here and say Shane Waldron fixed Geno as if there was no other factors to it is crazy. Like I said, when I mentioned that I would want to interview the Browns' former offensive coordinator or someone from that staff. And I would say that's also similar to the Titans going after the Bengals OC, even though he was a hot name. But those two situations are similar because maybe to the Bears, who have 2 potentially different quarterbacks, more than 2, because if you consider Drake May and Jaden Daniels, to them, it's important to talk to someone who's been through that process. Okay, let's sit down with me. Tell me how it was with the Browns. Like, obviously, this was the first time you was putting Deshaun Watson into the system. It wasn't working. How did y'all adjust? He may have played a little better. Then he got hurt. Then you had to adjust to this quarterback, to that. Then you brought in Joe Flacco, and y'all still went to the play. Like, talk to me. How did that go? Bengals, OC, Joe Burrow. You know what that is. Again, if you want to talk in terms of Joe Burrow, everything's Joe Burrow. You'll give him a little bit of, oh yeah, Chase is really good too, but everything's Joe Burrow until he got hurt. And then this other quarterback came in, the offense was able to do some things. And so come in, talk to us about that. What changes did you do between Burrow and Browning? Like, what were you able to keep the same? Like, so there's value in that, and that's fine. That makes sense to me. So if it's Shane Waldron, you were there, you were a part of Geno's reclamation or whatever. Talk to us about what contributed to that. If the conversation is just, hey, you fixed Geno, we want you, that's silly. Now I'm praying, I should say. I won't say I'm sure, but I'm praying the people in Hallis Hall are smart enough not to approach it that way. I'm sure they understand that. But If that's the only reason you get in the door, if that's the only reason, or if you don't dive into that and you skip over it, because of course we don't know what happened in the interviews. If you skip over it and you just mark that as a checkbox, boom, you fix Geno. That's negligence, because that's not real football. That's not how that works. And so I spend more time on that than I want to, but that irks me to no degree. And people say it's semantics. Semantics matter, words matter. Saying he fixed Geno and saying he was there during Geno's comeback year is a very different thing. And so that, and it might be, and I'm not saying it's not. I'm not sitting here saying he didn't definitively do anything and nothing like that. What I'm saying is we don't know. None of us have the authority to make such a blatant state or make a statement as if it's so blatantly true. None of us do. Again, you get in the interview and you talk to him and you talk to other people around it. Maybe, I doubt it, because that's just not how any football works. But he might have been a big part of it. And just anyway, you want to talk to him about how that went. And then again, people talk about he's worked with a lot of different quarterbacks. So again, what are those differences? What have you changed? What have you learned from these different coaches? Because he was under Belichick for some time. He's been under McVay. He's been under Pete Carroll. And I believe it was someone else. But like, okay, so that, like, tell us about that. It's not a definitive statement. So anyway, we get Shane Waldron. I watched a couple games, partly through, but I've seen Seattle, and I don't know that I'll have time to really dig back into that and like, oh, I watched every game the last 3 years just to get a sense, because it ain't the same personnel. And literally that's been the whole discussion, is that what can we do to adapt? But overall, I mean, from the McVay tree, which is really the Shanahan tree as well, and that's just kind of what the league is going to. And so I look at the hire and I was just like, okay, we'll see what can happen. But I can't sit here and lie. Like, that's pretty much what I asked for. I mean, one of the only things I said is, hey, looking at a system where you work a lot of this pre-snap motion and shifts and misdirection and stuff like that, like a McVay, and you got a guy from that tree sort of, and so you can't ask for much more than that. And then I think what really stands out is that, or at least compared to Getsy, is that he has actual experience calling plays first. Because here's what's funny to me. We got the people, and I hear them saying, oh, we're so ready for something that's not archaic. We're so ready for something that's a modern offense. And so we're so excited. Or one of the things to be excited about potentially is that we got a guy from the McVay Shanahan tree. Where do y'all think Luke Getsy came from? What tree do you think he came from? He was hired by LaFleur to be OC, or to be quarterbacks and then eventually OC. Where did Matt LaFleur come from? That same group that's spreading around the whole league. And so again, I'm not defending Getsy, but I just want people to think critically, because I seen I don't even remember exactly what it said, but it's in the same thing that you hear all the time. Luke Getsy held back Justin Fields. It would be great to see somebody that didn't hold back Fields. Now again, we could still talk about halftime adjustments and game adjustments. We could talk about situational play calling in general, whatever. But when it comes to systems, I've been very consistent with this. Whenever somebody wants to talk systems, what's my first question? What is a system? What does a system mean? I've been asking that for years. Through the Nagy, everything. What is the system? What does that mean? Like, if you did something and this was the coach there when you did it, oh, you did well in that system. You don't know you don't even know that that's true. People just say stuff. The system, quote unquote, might have nothing to do with it. But I can tell you what a system is and what it means to me and what all included in that. But I guarantee most people can't even answer that. So to me, as I keep asking, how is it that all y'all are experts on evaluating a system and you don't even know what a system is? And this is a perfect example of why I don't take people seriously. Because if you are one of those people saying, so glad to get out of that Getsy system, that archaic system, well, now we're moving to something McVay-like, you clearly don't know systems because they come from the same system. It's not super different. And so every coach is going to have their own philosophy, which is part of their system. So, you know, whoever, it's a bunch of these coaches. So Mike Shanahan is the big dog. Then you got Kyle Shanahan's son. Kyle might like to pass it on third down more than his dad did. McVay might like to play action more on second down versus first down. Waldron might like to run on third down, third and short more than this person. So everybody's going to have their own philosophy, their own flavor to it. Somebody might like motions more. Somebody might like this type of motion. Somebody might like this and whatever. It's going to be different philosophies. Part of that is what makes the system slightly different. And so I'm not saying it's the exact same. I'm not saying Getsy's the exact same. The most important thing to me is how you can teach it. And that's the thing. So everybody wants to talk about who they set under. And maybe people getting smarter, I don't know. But that would seem to have been like a real long trend, especially with the Belichick tree. Oh, you were under him? Boom. You must know. You can roll it out just like they roll it out. That's not true. Not only may you not understand it the same way as the coach you came from or the staff, you might not know how to articulate it the same way. You might not know how to teach it the same way. You might not have the staff that it takes to implement it the same way. And so I'm not saying, hey, all these coaches are interchangeable. I'm not saying Getsy is Waldron, not saying that, but again, it's how we talk about football. So we want to sit here and say Getsy was archaic, and again, people with the narrative, Getsy held back Justin Fields, and I still contest. I feel like there's just as much evidence to say Justin Fields held back Luke Getsy, because you coming at it with the same amount of evidence that I am. You don't have no evidence of what Luke did specifically enough to even say how that impacted Justin Fields. You just watching the result on the field. You want to support Fields. You heard other people say blame Luke Getsy, and so that's what you did. And I look at it, and I looked at it, and I know that I'm consistent with it because I said it before with a different coaching staff. I look at Fields to that extent. I look at Trubisky, and I'm like, as an offensive play caller, yes, there's a lot of things you won't do. You even got the Buffalo Bills, who mid-season OC change, and remember, everybody said this dude's the Lord and Savior. Look at that. You fire your OC, it's just all different. No. But look at how they played them against the Chiefs. It wasn't snowing in Buffalo. It wasn't 30 miles per hour wind. They played it as if we want to hinder our exposure for Josh to do something negative to us. And so do you think it's in the realm of possibility that a player like Trubisky, like Fields, might have gave their offensive staff the same feeling? And so it's not one or the other. It's not 100%, 0%. It's all part of the truth. But in today's society, in today's fandom, people don't want the actual truth. They just want the narrative. So my point is, the actual things that I take away from this, besides the narratives, is that yes, having play calling experience is going to make it different because you just have time on task. Like I say, with a lot of positions, you've seen situations. That doesn't make you good, but it does put you ahead. And then the variety of experience with different quarterbacks and all that, because it is true, while Gatsby has been under other coaches, at least with the Packers, for when he was a quarterback's coach, because he was with the Packers with Mike McCarthy before. Let's not get that part twisted either. But at least with LaFleur, it was just Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers. And this is somebody that's had experience with different quarterbacks and different teams. He's had experience calling plays. He does have the exposure and experience to the Shanahan-McVay system. And so those are all positives that I think that the Bears were pointing out. And I think those are tangible and real, and those are cool with me too. But it's about execution. Like I said, so I don't believe that you get Justin Fields back and he's the exact same player and you just magically are going to force him into the system. What's going to happen is you're going to have everybody say the exact same thing. Stop trying to make him into your system. Make a system for him. We have to play action bootleg every play. Get him on the move. Like, what are y'all talking about? So my point being there is that if you have the exact same with Justin Fields, Shane Waldron's going to have to change his stuff up too, just like Gatsby. As I told you, it is 100,000% objectively true. The offense was called and ran different when Bajent was starting. It just was. And I told you, I seen more creativity from Gatsby. I seen a different style. Who your quarterback? So I don't get why it doesn't work both ways. People keep saying you can't force them into your system. You have to make something for this quarterback. Well, if that's true, then it must also be true that the system you're seeing is not my system. This is what I have to do because of this quarterback. Again, which side you want to take, that's the narrative you create. We like Justin Fields, so we're going to say you're forcing him into your system and you're not giving him the right system. And instead of just taking a look on the other side and think logically, oh, well, also at the same time, Justin might be limiting what we can do on offense. So there's that. So Shane Waldron, cool, whatever. Like I said, I'll probably, if I had time here or there, I'll take a peek at some Seattle stuff, all 22. But for the most part, I hope people don't go digging into Seattle. It's not the same team. It's going to be adjustments. And then you have Pete Carroll there too. Pete Carroll's philosophy and style is going to be different than Eberflus. He might have more freedom. The way the Bears are set up, I wouldn't be shocked if Eberflus is more of a figurehead. That would be so sad, and I wish they would have just fired him. But I wouldn't be shocked if it's like, hey, you kind of run the day-to-day. This OC, we're going to have the final approval on him, and that person's going to do everything offense and really, like, so I heard someone say be the head coach of the offense, which is an oxymoron in its own way, but also a very dumb philosophy. So I hope that's not the case, but it's possible. I could see that happening. But either way, there's going to be changes. It just will be. It won't be exactly what it was in Seattle. And that, again, is what Poles and Eberflus and Warren were all preaching. We want to find someone that's multiple, that's adaptable. As I said a month ago, weeks ago, looking forward to y'all running this person out of the building too. All right, so Caleb Williams. This is round 3 on Caleb Williams. So since the last time, I've been thinking a lot, and I would say my conviction has weakened a little bit, but it wasn't necessarily anything new. It was just, thinking about it. And so I mentioned kind of what would work for him, what type of surrounding and system we would have to give for him to maximize himself. And I thought that was me addressing everything, but I want to make sure I articulate it correctly this time. From the jump, from the first time I watched him, I still completely recognize the red flags. And so some people, again, will mention the Notre Dame game as like, condemnation on like him as a prospect. And I don't agree. Like I said, everything I watched initially was from 2023. So it wasn't like, oh, you're just watching the Heisman year. No, that's not what I was doing. So everything that I was impressed with, I saw him do this year. So that's number one. But there's certain things that are real life concerns. You talk about the height and everything like that, which I do think is a bit of an overblown deal by some people, but there's some truth to it. So I completely recognize the red flags, and what I said in my initial takeaway was that, again, you're going to have to find the person that can rein that talent in and get him onto a schedule where he can be efficient and effective, but you're not completely handicapping or handcuffing what he can do. So to that also, I just wanted to say, when you're talking about the draft and when I'm listening to people talk about Caleb, I think people are getting too caught up on translation. The draft is a delicate balance between projection and translation. I wouldn't say balance, but it's a mixture, because the heavy majority is projection. And there is some translation, but most of it is projection. And so I think people are falling into a common trap in which they're trying to translate Caleb Williams too much. And so, as I've told you before, you go by the main factors. Physical traits, which don't change a whole lot. Those are what they are. Can't necessarily teach those. Not at a lot of positions, especially. Then you go by the football IQ. You also have you got the physical traits. You got the football IQ, you got the technique, and then you got the character or the person. So again, the physical traits is the first thing because it's the most visible, it's the most visceral. We can watch, especially live, or live as in person, but you could watch somebody and say, yeah, that guy can't throw the ball the same as that guy. Like, you turn on if you turn on the Bills versus the Raiders, you're not going to confuse Jimmy Garoppolo's arm with Josh Allen's. So when it comes to any player, but quarterbacks in this case, that physical talent is going to be the first thing. And when you're talking about the physical talent, that's really mostly projection, because like, speed is speed, arm strength is arm strength, agility is agility. That stuff is what it is. It's not like projecting, oh, can he use this in the league? No, the physical tools are always going to translate. So we don't need to talk about that. It's really just a projection of where they rank in the league. Again, we're projecting, okay, this is going to be one of the fastest guys in the league, or this guy's going to have an average arm in the league. That's the projection you really are doing. And then you get to the technique, which again is heavy projection. Some of it translation. You watch a guy and they're one trick pony, because there's plenty of guys. There's plenty of guys I've seen lead the NCAA in sacks or lead the NCAA in interceptions or whatever, and they get to the league and they're just they can't do that. And so a lot of it is context, and obviously I talk about that. But sometimes you have guys in the league or in college that they do this thing that's not going to translate to the NFL. And so you look at the technique and it's mostly, okay, yeah, you're not going to get away with that in the NFL, but here are the things we know works in the NFL. Where are you at? Where do you project as a rookie, and where do you project in the future? So let's take a Myles Garrett, for example. Myles Garrett, we look at him, we know the physical, the explosion, the speed, the agility, the hip movement, cool. Let's say, for example, all right, technique wise, not really good at dipping his hips and bending the corner. Okay, we know coming in as a rookie, he's not going to be great at that, but we know that's something that makes a great player. Based on his athletic profile and who he is, what can we project his ability to get great at that? And so, again, it's a conversation of projection. Then you get to the football IQ. Now, that's more of a translation, especially in terms of your team. Like, how does this fit with our roster? How does this fit in the league? Like, what, because I have my IQ, and you might be real smart at reading college defenses or taking advantage of the read option. Does that translate to the NFL where, okay, those things that you're really good at IQ wise, that's not the type of football played in the NFL. Now, you might get a guy from Bama and their passing concepts are very close to an NFL concept. Okay, that's going to translate well. And then you get the character. The character is all projection, man. It's all projection. And that's where you have to understand, okay, again, how does this show me his capacity to get better? So I think a lot of people are looking at Caleb Williams and trying to translate. They're like, oh, he does this stuff and he spins around and throws it like this and throws off his back foot and he won't be able to get away with that in the NFL. No one is calling Caleb a generational talent because they think what he's doing in college and his style of play is going to copy paste into the NFL. Rarely with any player is that what you're doing. Again, it's not about translating. It's not, okay, he's doing this crazy stuff, we think he's going to be able to do that in the NFL. No, it's, again, what are the traits that we can project? So specifically with Caleb Williams, I listed them out. First of all, the arm talent. That's the first thing you're going to go to. Arm talent is the arm talent. And if I was to watch Caleb Williams in 23 and it looked like he didn't have the same velocity, that would be a real red flag for me. That's when you start to talk about, okay, that's an issue, because the physical talent is the physical talent. They ain't got nothing to do with going to the NFL. It's the way you throw or your velocity to throw is no matter what football you pick up, what field you on, what defense you're going against, that's your velocity to throw. And so if that changed, that'd be something. He's got that. Number two, the spatial awareness. Like I said, the ability that adds to your ability to maneuver, or not maneuver, but to be aware in the pocket. That travels. And then you talk about the short area quickness. Again, his ability to maneuver in the pocket and to manipulate the pocket is like very few we've seen. And it's crazy to hear people say that, oh, I haven't seen him do anything that Justin Fields can't do. What are you smoking? What do you watch? Like, if you watch the highlight and be like, Justin had a crazy highlight, like, okay, yeah, I get it, but it's not the same thing. Like, being able to explode out of the block in the 40 and be explosive and hit top speed downfield with power is not the same thing as being able to accelerate, stop, move left to right, move back, and move forward in a short amount of time in a short area. That's not the same movement. Like, even with speed, there's people that run similar 40s, but it's not the same style. It's not the same running style. The speed ain't even the same. It don't translate onto the field the same. And so the way that Caleb moves is very different from Justin Fields and is very rare. And so when you're talking about whatever it is he's doing, whether if it's escaping a sack, whether it's stepping up to throw, whether it's moving around the pocket to extend the play, that is a rare ability in a quarterback that we've seen. Because, yeah, you get a Zay Flowers or Tyreek Hill, who I think is probably the first person you think of. Can he stop on a dime, accelerate, turn? Yeah, he can do all that. Can he throw the ball like Caleb? No. So you rarely get those combinations together in those terms. Then his ball carrying vision, and his ability to see the field that way, all those different things, those combine for a unique trait. And then of course there's a long list of other stuff, but I'm saying those are the things that you're like, okay, again, here's what we want to do in the NFL. Here's what's effective. Here's what we know works in terms of traits and, philosophy. What is this player's ability through his physical traits, through his technique, through his IQ, through his character to project to be effective or elite at those things that we know works in the NFL? That's what you're evaluating. You're not looking at him and saying, oh, he made that crazy play, we think he's gonna make that crazy play in the league. No, systems are completely different. You would be, and I don't think the Bears are doing this, I think it's obvious we're not, but you would have to be a real dumb team to be like, we're going to take a player and we're just simply going to cut him loose and try to do whatever he did in college. That is the dumbest approach that you can take. There is a marriage between molding someone into an NFL style quarterback and still playing to their strengths. No one's saying, hey, there's one offense in the NFL, although it's starting to feel like that. There's one offense in the NFL and everybody has to play exactly like this and we all got the same plays. No, obviously that's not true. But there are certain things that you just have to do in the NFL to be effective. Like, so the Notre Dame game, if you want to pick it apart, again, remember this. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And I think some people forgetting that. Oh, he threw these interceptions. He threw 3 interceptions in a half. Like, no, look at the film. Caleb Williams throwing, falling back, putting the ball up, interception. The accuracy and the velocity is not there. Caleb Williams jumping off his feet completely not tied to his upper body, throwing a pass that ends up inaccurate, doesn't have enough velocity. Those are all one situation versus Caleb just standing there making a throw that completely went nowhere close to where he was trying to throw it, or throwing it and it went out so slow that the defender broke on it. Those are two separate things. This is why stats will never tell you the story. What you do ain't as important as how you do it. So yes, you're going to say, Caleb, most of the time, those are plays you need to throw the ball away. Or you don't, or you need to take the sack. One of the two. And so there's going to be a changing of his style. There's going to be a maturity. If you're going to get to that level, that's what happens. It's what happens with every great quarterback we have in the top 5 right now. There's a maturation process. There's a adaptation to the league to say, hey, yeah, you can't do those things as frequently as you could. You can't make that throw as frequently as you could. And like I said, he's got a big arm. He's going to have big arm syndrome. I already said it. He's had it in USC. But when you're projected into the league, you got to remember, because I think a lot of people like to say, well, you won't be playing college caliber defenses anymore. You're going to be playing NFL defenses. It's just going to get worse. But then you just leave out the fact, well, you're also going to have NFL caliber people blocking for you now. You also might have a elite NFL caliber receiver catching for, and I'm not talking the Bears, but I just mean in general with any prospect. Like, people leave that part out. It works both ways. So not only are you going to be playing against NFL caliber, but you're going to be playing with NFL caliber as well. And so you look at the Trojans this year. That felt weird to say. You look at USC this year, and as I said, the offensive line and the defense, you don't expect to put Caleb in that situation, which is why I said it's not a translation discussion. You're not drafting Caleb saying, yeah, okay, we're going to have a line that gives up immediate pressure through the middle almost every other play. We're going to have a receiver about the same speed as the ones he had. We're going to have a defense that's going to put him in bad situations every time. No, you're expecting to have a different situation than what he had in college. And the exact opposite is true too. You have somebody from Ohio State or Alabama where they tend to be around all NFL caliber first round picks. You're not drafting them saying, oh yeah, we're going to have 5 first rounders on the offensive line and we're going to have 3 different first round receivers. Like, no, you are understanding that it's going to a different level and you're calibrating all of that together. And the Bears, as many have said, we're in a unique position. We're not the number 1 draft team. We're not the number 1 team in the draft. We're not the worst team in the league. We have, first of all, the one thing people have to remember is polls set the bar so low we had no choice to be better. So yes, what Justin Fields lived through, Caleb won't have to live through. Justin made that sacrifice. But the offensive line is objectively better. And this is not even talking about the changes to come. Since the regime took over, the offensive line is objectively better. The weapons, objectively better. The defense, objectively better. So, and then we anticipate to add more pieces. So we're in a different situation. So I'm not looking at my line as it is now, even with no upgrades. I'm not looking at that saying, oh yeah, he's going to have to deal with what he dealt with USC. I'm not looking at the receiving core and saying, oh yeah, we don't have anybody on our roster that was as good as his receivers at USC. That's not how I'm feeling. And I'm not looking at his defense or looking at our defense and saying, yeah, they're going to hang him out to dry. No, I think he's going to be in position to have a lot of upgrades. So there's a lot of moving pieces. It ain't just simple plug and play like people want to make it. Caleb will have to, as a person, number 1, and then as a player, evolve to the NFL level. And that includes work habits, expectations, execution, all of that. But then his style of play and everything is going to have to mature too to understand how to be an effective quarterback. But part of that is the roster that he'll be walking into. And so I listen to people, and I don't think, again, some of the stuff people say is not warranted. And I hopefully didn't come across last time as if there's no issues with Caleb. My biggest thing, excuse me, as I said, the piece that I don't get to be a part of, none of us do. B is most important in a draft. C is most important, especially for a quarterback. And D is really important just with the type of player he is that in-person stuff or that character stuff. It don't have to necessarily be in person. It's going to be parts interviewing, parts talking to coaches, parts talking to other people. But that's the part that's going to be the most important. And I said that the first time around as well. And maybe I, just kind of threw it out there, but it's a giant if. If he checks that box, the rest of it's good to go to me. But I still said there's that giant if, because you got to know his capacity to grow and to lead. And those are different. What's his capacity to lead? What is his capacity to grow? Because this ain't the NBA. This ain't, we made it. We had coach of the year, but our superstar don't like him. Let's fire him. That's not what that is. This is a lot. So we got to know what's his ability to be a team player, to grow. Now, there are quarterbacks that have been great that are divas. Not to the point where they alienate everybody, but they are very much a diva. And so I'm not saying that, but I'm saying, what's his attitude towards football and his capacity to grow? Now, the way he plays on the film, he's a gamer to me. Loves the game. You won't play like that unless you love the game. But still, that's up to the Bears to really figure out that piece. And that is the biggest piece. As much as people want to, again, talk about players like it's black or white. This person was good, was bad. You messed up, you picked the wrong one. No, it's all contextual, and a lot of it has to do with that person. You might, and that's why, that's why team philosophy matters way more than people give it credit for. The GM, the coordinators, the head coach, and the position coaches too, and the scouts, everybody has to be, I don't say have to, if they are on the same page about what we value on this team, on this roster, we value this trait over that trait. We value this higher than anything else. When we talking about a right tackle, this is the type of right tackle we want to execute what we want to do. Because now when the pro scouts are watching other NFL players, when the college scouts are watching college prospects, when the GM is looking at free agents and what deals to make, when it's synergy and we all understand what we're looking for in terms of a roster, that's where it works. You might have a team with veterans, a very old team, or not old, but older team, and you might have playoff championship expectations. You bring in a coach who's not really good at his job, or a GM that's not really good at his job, and you don't take that into account, and you bring in a rookie who might be talented but was not ready to be in a veteran locker room and completely broke down. And now, of course, the players or the fans and everybody else going to be like, oh, that player sucks. No, it wasn't the right fit. He might have sucked, but it wasn't the right fit for you to even find out. And so I feel the same way with Getsy and a lot of things. Like, and I tend to hear, like I said, former front office people and veteran beat writers. I feel like they say the smartest stuff. And I heard somebody say today, like 99% of the NFL players, coaching, front office is circumstantial. Now, we don't talk about it that way. We just talk about it as black and white, but it is. 99% of it is circumstantial. So anyway, all this to say, As I sit here today, I do wonder. And I'm going to wonder the whole time because I don't know Caleb. I'm not going to get to know Caleb. And no matter what the Bears tell me, I don't know that for my own self. So until we see it over time, then only we can be like, okay, they was right. This kid had all the things that was necessary for him to maximize his talent in the NFL. But until that, I don't know. And it is scary because you are what's the word? Opportunity cost is so high. You are passing up the opportunity to get a lot of amazing stuff. And so, yeah, because the thing is, everyone's like Justin Fields or Caleb Williams, and I was a bit of a critic of this, but I agree. I kind of changed my mind a little bit. The thing is, it's not just those two or any other quarterback this year. The thing is, if you build up the roster and you get studs, like you get free agents and you get some young rookies that are cheap but starters, and you get a stud roster and Justin is still not up to par, then you get a 49ers situation. Kind of, because they gave up the farm to get a quarterback that didn't work out. But still, you had a roster so ready made for somebody to step in that they didn't necessarily have to be the guy you traded up to get. And so it's not just keep Justin forever or keep Caleb forever. You could keep Justin for now, use all those assets to build up the roster, and then get another quarterback. Now, to me, my response is always where? How can you project where that quarterback, young, effective, starting caliber quarterbacks don't come available often in free agency trade market. If you that good, probably not picking that high. You're not always going to have the number one pick. So my question was who? But, and that's still true, but I do feel a little more open to that idea that, yeah, I mean, it's just the potential of what we could do. Even if the thing is with Caleb is so crazy is that we could go to 4. It ain't like a Panthers situation where it's like, we're going to just completely, give up whatever we got to have the number one pick. That's what the Panthers did. No, we could give up the number one spot and still be in this thing. So, yeah, to move to 4, and I haven't watched Marvin Harrison. I still think it's a good receiver class. But if he's what people say, to move to 4, get him and still have assets to where like you could get 3 first round picks or even just 2 top 10 picks. And then you got another first next year or extra second this year. And just the ability to load the roster with talent is tempting. It's tempting. But so for me, the things I liked about Caleb haven't changed. The red flags are there. How's he going to be with his teammates? How's he going to be as a leader? How's he going to be attitude-wise to be a franchise quarterback, essentially? And not everybody's built for that. I mean, we could talk like they are just because you got the talent means you're going to be that. And I don't necessarily feel everybody has to be a CEO and they talk like they do. It helps. It gives you less headaches, but I don't feel like everybody has to do that. If he wants to be his own guy, like people like, oh, he painted his nails, oh my God. Or he cried with his mom, oh my, like really, that stuff, that's silly. Like you can be your own person. But is the attitude or I can never say that word, quirks or whatever it is about you, is it something that will impact your play in the roster, in the locker room? That's the question. So anyway, that's it for me. Go down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Share it around. Get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.